Imagine planning the happiest day of your life, only to have it become your funeral instead. For Laura Grillo, a 37-year-old mother of 3, her wedding was just 8 days away when she was found with a single bullet to her head in her Texas home. As her children waited for a wedding that would never happen, investigators uncovered a shocking truth. The murder wasn't a random act of violence or robbery gone wrong. The man who had proposed to her, who had promised to love her forever, had orchestrated her execution. This is the story of a bride-to-be who never made it down the aisle, and the twisted betrayal that cut her life short. Welcome to Vic's True Crime Stories, where the truth is often stranger than fiction. Here, we explore the most chilling, twisted, and unbelievable real-life crime stories. Cases filled with deception, betrayal, and the dark side of human nature. Some criminals think they can get away with anything. But as we've seen time and time again, the truth always catches up. Get comfortable, because tonight, we're diving into a case that will leave you questioning everything. This is Vic's True Crime Stories. Let's begin. What does a woman do 8 days before her wedding? For Laura Grillo, it was a time of final dress fittings, confirming flower arrangements, and counting down the moments until she would become Mrs. Makris. The November air in Rowlett, Texas carried a sense of anticipation as Laura balanced her wedding preparations with the everyday responsibilities of motherhood. Her 3 children watched their mother float between moments of wedding excitement and her usual routines, unaware that their family's story was about to take a devastating turn. Laura wasn't just a bride-to-be, she was a pillar in her community. Her volunteer work with the Rowlett Police Department spoke to her character, someone who gave her time to others even while juggling the demands of raising 3 children. The irony that she worked alongside the very department that would later investigate her murder wasn't lost on those who knew her. Each evening, after handling wedding details, she'd return home to help with homework, prepare dinner, and tuck her children into bed, her wedding binder never far from reach. Behind the smiles and wedding plans, however, shadows had been gathering. John Makris, the man Laura was preparing to spend her life with, had shown concerning patterns of behavior that friends would later recognize as warning signs. His tight grip on their financial decisions left Laura with little autonomy. The emotional distance between them would suddenly disappear when conflict arose, replaced by grand gestures that temporarily masked deeper issues. In June 2015, just months before the wedding, Laura had reached a breaking point. In an email that would later become critical evidence, she poured out her unhappiness. "I don't think this is working between us," she wrote to Makris, suggesting they end their relationship. The words carried the weight of a woman who had seen enough to know something wasn't right. Yet, just 1 month later, everything seemed to change when Makris orchestrated a romantic proposal in front of Laura's children and brother. The gesture was calculated. Witnesses would later describe how Laura's doubts seemed to melt away as she said yes. What Laura couldn't see was how Makris had already begun plotting. While she researched reception venues and sampled wedding cakes, he purchased a silver Kia, a vehicle that had no apparent connection to his daily business operations but would play a crucial role in the crime to come. The car represented the duality of their lives, wedding preparations moving forward while murder plans developed in secret. The morning of November 13, 2015 began like any other. Laura moved through her routine with the efficiency of a mother who had mastered the morning rush. She helped her children with breakfast, gathered backpacks, and dropped them off at school. Her to-do list for the day included last-minute wedding errands, touching base with a caterer, confirming final guest counts, and picking up the table decorations that would never be used for their intended purpose. In the quiet house, Laura's autistic brother, who was partially deaf, slept soundly, unaware of the danger approaching. His disability would become a tragic factor in the events that followed, as he would sleep through the single gunshot that ended his sister's life, a bullet to the head delivered not in passion but in cold calculation. The scene investigators encountered hours later told a story of violent interruption. Wedding invitations sat in neat stacks on the dining room table. A wedding dress hung in protective plastic in the master bedroom closet. The contrast between the symbols of beginning and ending was stark. Streamers and centerpieces waiting to celebrate a union, while crime scene tape marked the boundaries of a murder investigation. Laura Grillo's dreams extended far beyond becoming a bride. She had been building a life centered on her children and community service. Her volunteer work with the police department had given her a sense of purpose beyond motherhood, and friends described how she spoke of plans to expand that role once she was settled into married life. Now those dreams lay shattered alongside scattered wedding preparations that would never see completion. Her dreams may have been shattered, but Laura's connection to law enforcement would prove to be her voice from beyond the grave. When John Makris stood in the doorway of their home speaking to police, he made a critical error so subtle that most wouldn't notice, but to seasoned detectives, it screamed of guilt. 4 simple words in response to a standard question would become the first thread that, when pulled, would unravel what investigators later called one of the most calculated murder plots they'd ever encountered. The crime scene itself told a contradictory story. Detectives immediately noticed the absence of forced entry. No broken windows, no pry doors, no evidence that an intruder had fought their way in. Yet the master bedroom appeared meticulously ransacked, with drawers overturned and an empty safe standing open. It was the perfect picture of a robbery, almost too perfect. The narrative being presented was clear. An unknown intruder had broken in, surprised Laura, and murdered her when she interrupted their theft of $8,000 to $9,000 in cash. But something about John Makris' demeanor struck investigators as profoundly wrong. Here was a man who had lost his bride-to-be just days before their wedding, yet his emotional reaction seemed oddly restrained. His tears were light, almost performative, and dried with unsettling speed. Even more disturbing was his expressed desire to move back into the home shortly after the murder, as though eager to return to normalcy while Laura's blood still stained the floor. When detectives reviewed the body camera footage from the first officers on scene, they caught the moment that would change everything. Asked a routine question about who lived in the residence, Makris failed to mention Laura. It was a telling omission that no genuinely grieving fiancé would make, as if in his mind, she was already erased. This single detail, easily dismissed as shock or confusion, instead became the first significant crack in Makris' carefully constructed facade. On the surface, Makris appeared to have the perfect alibi. Surveillance footage from a local Home Depot showed him shopping with 2 employees, Jesus Trevino and James Valletta, miles away from the murder scene. It was the kind of concrete evidence that typically exonerates a suspect. But investigators, now suspicious of the too-perfect robbery scene and Makris' strange behavior, dug deeper into the whereabouts of all 3 men. Cell phone records told a different story than the surveillance footage. While Makris' phone pinged towers near the Home Depot, records revealed that Trevino and Valletta's phones were transmitting from towers in Rowlett, near Laura's home, at the time of her murder. The contradiction was striking. How could 2 men be shopping at Home Depot while their phones remained miles away in Rowlett? The answer was becoming increasingly clear. Makris had created his alibi while sending his employees to carry out the killing. Background checks on Trevino and Valletta uncovered troubling histories that painted them as men Makris could potentially manipulate into violence. Both had extensive criminal records, with Trevino being a convicted sex offender who had previously been deported and had returned to the U.S. illegally. These weren't random employees. They were men with histories that made them vulnerable to coercion and criminal opportunity. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when detectives received a crucial tip from Lorena Rodriguez, Trevino's ex-girlfriend. She revealed that Trevino had confided in her about a disturbing proposition from his boss. Makris had offered him $15,000 to kill Laura. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong or a crime of passion. It was a calculated murder-for-hire plot orchestrated by the very man who had proposed marriage just months earlier. As investigators pieced together the timeline, the chilling premeditation became clear. After Laura had expressed her desire to end their relationship, Makris had orchestrated a romantic proposal to keep her close while simultaneously planning her execution. He had methodically arranged for his employees to carry out the murder while he established his alibi at Home Depot, cold-bloodedly ensuring he would appear innocent while Laura's life was violently ended. The final piece of justice fell into place when both John Makris and Jesus Trevino received life sentences without parole. The wedding that never happened became a cautionary tale about love twisted into possession. While Laura's family gathered at what should have been her wedding venue, they instead found themselves seeking closure in a courtroom where her killer showed no remorse. For Laura's 3 children, their mother's absence leaves an unfillable void. Yet through the persistence of detectives who recognized the inconsistencies in Makris' performance of grief, they at least have the truth. Their mother wasn't lost to random violence, but to the calculated betrayal of someone who claimed to love her. This case reminds us that when someone shows you who they truly are, through controlling behaviors or emotional manipulation, believing them the first time might save your life. Laura's story now serves as a warning beacon for others who might recognize similar patterns in their own relationships before it's too late. If you found this story as unbelievable as we did, don't forget to hit that like button. It helps more people discover these shocking cases. And if you love deep dives into true crime, make sure to subscribe to Vic's True Crime Stories and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss a case that will leave you speechless. There's always more to the story than meets the eye, and we'll be here to uncover it. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious, stay safe.